In this video, we're going to take a look at activity 3.1.4, while loops and if-else structures. Specifically, we're going to look at part 5a, and I'm going to be, in the next 3 videos, I'm going to cover all parts. So depending on which part you're doing, or for my students, they do all 4 of these parts to get really good practice with the if-else statements and while loops. Part A says to make a motor spin as long as the bumper switch is held down. Its direction depends on whether a person is within 20 millimeters of the distance sensor. If the button is released, the behavior will repeat until it is pressed again. So I'm going to go ahead and move into VEX code to start building this program. We already have the file set to part 5a, and this is going to, it says that it's going to continue to do this behavior until that button's pressed again. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a forever loop in this particular case, and I'm then going to go ahead and say, I'm going to go ahead and have an if-else statement dropped in there. So it says to utilize, I always kind of give a little bit of a hint of maybe how I want to see some things structured. So here I'm going to go through and see if it's going to do this, and else it's going to happen. So to be something different. So here we're going to go ahead and we're going to build in the sensing. So it says let's go ahead and use the bumper switch. So if the bumper switch is pressed, then we're going to go ahead and do something here in the if condition. Else, we want to, I always like to go ahead and set up like what is the thing that we don't want it to do. We're just going to use the left motor. We want it to stop the left motor. If we don't have this stop command in there, it kind of gets caught in the loop, and the motor will run continuously until you actually have to hit stop on the program up here at the top. So I'm going to go ahead now and look at control again, and I'm actually going to nest another if-else statement inside of the if condition. And what we want to build is that if the distance sensor, reads an object in millimeters less than 20 millimeters, so I actually need an operator to give me the less than symbol, and we'll put 20 in this, and then I'll go back up to sensing, and then with the distance sensor I'm going to drop that into this section. So if the distance sensor reads an object's distance less than 20 millimeters, then we want to go ahead and have, so if it's less than, we might say let's spin the motor in reverse, and otherwise if it doesn't read anything less than 20, then we're going to spin it forward. So it's kind of, would maybe think about that as like a backup sensor or something like that. So again, checking our task description, we make the motor spin as long as the bumper switch is held down. The direction depends on whether a person is within 20 millimeters of the distance sensor. If it's released, the behavior will repeat until it is pressed again. So here is where we can go into VEX code. We'll download. We'll see what our behavior is, and I'll hit run. So right now it's only going to happen if I press the bump switch. So there's my motor. I didn't set up a velocity or anything. You can feel free to do so. But here is the bump switch, so you can see what direction it is turning. If I put my hand over the distance sensor, it's going to go through and change the direction if I take my hand away from it. So it continues to change directions based upon that distance sensor. If I take my finger off the button, the motor stops. So if I press it again, it continues to do this behavior. Alright, so this has been part 5a for activity 3.1.4, and here you can kind of see how we're using some of the features in parts 1 through 4 on how to go through and create some conditions and how to set up behaviors that repeat themselves. So in this situation, I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the next video, which means I'm going to hit save as, or the next part too if you're working on this using the video as a guide. I'll go ahead and name this as part 5b and hit save. And then once I have that named, I can go ahead and get rid of the code, and we'll start taking a look at activity 3.1.4, while loops and if-else structures, part 5b, in the next video.